So today we're going to be talking about the Witcher books. I don't know if any of you have read them or watched the new Netflix series that they've got out, which I'm pretty sure is having a second season soon. They're going to release the trailer at some point. But I previously watched the first season of that and decided that I should probably read the book, because I've been meaning to read them for a while, but just had never gotten around to it, and because I've been reading other stuff, and that kind of pushed me into, definitely should read. So I went ahead and did that. And I'm currently on book 4 of 6, I think. That's including the short stories at the beginning, but I think it's like 4 of 6 or something. But before we get into today's video, make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this kind of content, and leave a comment if you have read these before and what your opinions are, because I'd love to hear what you guys think. Now, the Witcher books. The series as a whole is really good in a way of doing both small scale world building and large scale at the same time. You've got it's small focus on Geralt and his relationship with the people around him. The other characters such as Ciri and Yennefer, who are kind of main people within this, and also just the inherent idea that he is a Witcher, which is a kind of mutant, and so people look down on him, see him as kind of different from everyone. In a world where there's elves and dwarves and things, he is still pushed out as a kind of monster, and but he has a purpose amongst them, but they use him for that and that only, which is just dealing with other monsters. The first book in the series is called The Last Wish, and that's a collection of short stories which focus around Geralt and some of the other characters, but mostly just him dealing with the people, and there's a kind of moral to these, which is just the fact that Geralt is a kind of mutant who deals with monsters, but the real kind of monsters are the people that are bad, they're despicable, they've got their own agendas which they lead towards, and it's very good because this is conveyed very clearly. In a way, some of the stories are kind of like twisted fairy tales. They take the kind of common tropes of what you would expect from them, and then twist them, make them kind of creepier, and more like, not like R-rated, but deal with them in a deeper way than the kind of happy-go-lucky stuff you'd read as a kid. If we move on from that first one, the second book, but technically the first book in the kind of actual series, is Blood of Elves, and this is after Geralt and Ciri have met, and he is now looking after her, and it's their journey through this world, and it focuses on the conflict between the elves and the humans, and you have Ciri, who acts as a viewpoint for the reader, because she's introduced to all these new conflicts, these new ideas that had to be explained to her, which is kind of a good way for the reader to be able to understand what's going on as well. This makes Ciri question what's going on and whether Geralt's decision to stay on the edge, stay out of the conflict, is a good idea, and that he could easily get involved and help out, but he chooses not to for the sake of nobody's done right by him, so why should he do right by them? This also raises the question whether it's possible to not take a side in a world where war is imminent and conflict is soon about to break out. The narrative of this one is very good. I enjoyed. There's not a clear beginning, middle, and end to these books, and that's one thing that at first kind of confused me. There was no build up to something, but it's the fact that it is going to be a larger thing that takes place over a longer time, and that I feel in the end will be satisfying enough that it will make sense. But it's kind of small parts of his journey rather than a narrative that ends at the big end of the book to then begin again. It just showed the author had in mind what he wanted to do, and he can piece that out without having to kind of tail end each book with something that might be important but also might not be, just a kind of way to bring a climax to the book that may not be needed. And if we move on to the next book, this is The Time of Contempt, and this is the second book in the series, the main series, And this one is a little bit more structured in terms of having a kind of conclusion to it, in a way, a fight-esque thing that takes place in the final third of the book. But it builds up towards this idea that Ciri is more than what it seems. You know this from before, I think in the first book, The Last Wish, the short stories, you kind of understand who she might be, but it becomes more of a problem here, and it more linked to the narrative. It's slow to begin with, but ends with a proper conclusion that is very fun to read and extremely exciting, and I really enjoyed it. In this one, also, Ciri spends more time with Yennefer, and that means Yennefer gets more kind of page time, which is quite good because she didn't really have a lot in the first one, and now she's more of the focus. And we'll see where she goes in the later books and what happens with her and Geralt and Ciri. I definitely recommend giving these a read if you can. They add a lot more than what I've seen in the show. The show I'd give like a 7 out of 10. But the books are so good. I really enjoyed them, and especially with what's coming next. And you might be able to just, if you can, start these now and see if you can get it done before this next second season comes out. Because I really enjoyed them. Although, little bone to pick. This is why they added a sticker for the series on the book, but I can't even get it off. It's just like on the cover, and it's on all of them, and it really annoys me. And yes, I have got some American editions, I think, because they just look nicer than the British ones, because why not? They just look nicer. Anyways, if I was to have to review the series so far, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5, but we'll see once I finish the series if that holds up. Thank you for watching the video, and if you like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and there will be a video somewhere about on the screen of another review I've done, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.